and it goes back to 2005. That's when we first published the American Community Survey. And so we have characteristics of the population that you can get from the American Community Survey. This page gives you a lot of information on the survey, which goes out to 3.5 million addresses annually. And it is through the individual's participation that we have this data for you. We do not, a lot of people think that we target them, but they don't understand the mechanics of the survey. And what happens is we have an address list, a national address list, and criteria is fed into that database, and it pulls out sample addresses for the survey. And so when we notify the household, we don't know who's living in that address. You just get a letter that says, "Dear current resident," right? Or it's addressed to current resident. And in that letter, you're getting all the information on the survey, an online address so you can go in and fill out the questionnaire, phone numbers if you need additional, you want to talk to somebody, and additional resources to help explain the survey, why we need your participation. And it is through those individuals that answer the questions on the questionnaire that we get the data. This page
Bluetooth devices. The
will
Bluetooth device
provide.
is
Well,
successful.
can somebody mute their phone because I think, or their mic, because it's coming through. Thank you. So this site will give you guidance if you're going to be using ACS. It also gives you the technical documentation, okay? Challenges to using the data, the geography that is covered in the survey sample areas. And so anything that you want to learn about the survey itself, it's here. But what I want to point out to you is this top link about the ACS. And towards the bottom, we have why we ask each questions, because it is very specific questions that we ask in the questionnaire. And a lot of people think, well, why should I be answering this? Because in the questions about your commuting or your journey to work, we do ask, what time do you leave your house, right, to go to work? And what mode of transportation are you using? And people think that's just too much information. You're profiling us. And it's like, no, what we're doing is using this commute data for traffic congestion, for road maintenance, you name it. There's a lot of information that comes from that. And if you go to that particular question, it gives you all the information as to why we are asking these questions in the questionnaire. You can go to high-level data. Here is how these statistics are used to help your community. And again, emergency planning, so on and so forth. There's just a lot to be had for answering these questions and the data that it provides. We do not keep your personal information, meaning your name and your telephone number. That is asked and required of you, because if there's anything that is questionable in the response, we will need to get in touch with you to verify and just make sure that we captured the right information that you intended for us to have. But once that is done, we strip your personal information from the questionnaire. We have your data. It's aggregated along with other respondents in the area, okay, in the sample area. And that's how we produce these statistics that give us a picture of the communities that we live and work in, right? So we are here on this page. You can, lots of different resources for you to look through, because it is a lengthy questionnaire. And the more people live in the house, the longer it gets to answer all the questions for everybody. But this is applicable to everybody that resides in that household, right? And so here is one area that you can self-educate on the program. Another area that I wanted to show you that is enabling you to start pulling data right away without knowing anything or anything about other tools or data is when you go over to the data link, you are able to see the tables and it'll give you all explanations of the different products that are available. Okay, selected housing characteristics, economic characteristics, social characteristics, and of course the demographic and housing estimates, right? But what I wanted to show you is under tables, when you look in that one, there's one particular that can help you if you're doing a community profile, or you need some verbiage and some graphics for your grant or your proposal or presentation, you name it. It's called the narrative profiles. This is a different way of looking at data aside from just numbers on a table, right? And so right off the bat, these are the series years that you can get data for. And these are the geographies that you can get profiles for. Now, another thing in this tool that is available to you, just think of every piece of data that we have is attached to a geography, right? We want data on this zip code. We want data at this county level. We want state level data to compare to the nation, whatever. You have that available to you. But say you get into a situation where you don't know the census geography. Say you wanted to go a little more deeper, more specific in your search. For instance, low-level geography, aside from a place, is census tract. Okay, so supposing you don't know the census tract to a location, an area that you want data for, you can use this little link here that says address lookup. If you have an address in that area that you want data for, you can start pulling it out from here and identify that census geography at those lower levels that you might want to go granular on, right? So for example, I'm going to use 2141 South St. Louis. Okay. So what it's doing, it is searching our address list and it found a match. You notice I didn't give it a zip code, but it found I gave it enough information in the search engine that it located a match. And so right now what I'm looking at is if I wanted to go, this is a specific area in the city of Chicago, right? But I don't want data for the entire city. I want it specifically to that neighborhood. And think of this, we always come in and say, I want neighborhood data. Census geography is very specific. Neighborhood data, or I should say neighborhood boundaries, are locally defined. So there may be areas in the neighborhood that don't fit into the census tracts that we're collecting data on. And that is because neighborhood boundaries, since they are locally defined, they can meander into other neighborhoods, adjoining neighborhoods. Same thing with zip codes, okay? Zip codes are the way census describes that geography, that demographic data in that particular geography. Because when we go to the tool, and I'll show you, there is a 5-digit zip code category in the geography filter, but that 5-digit zip code will only bring back business data or econ data. So there's a difference between ZITCAs and 5-digit zip codes. This is the demographic side, right? And so again, with neighborhood boundaries, zip codes, we get the delivery sequence file during the decennial every 10 years from the post office, right? When we load it onto our system, it stays static for that 10-year period until we get the next file. The post office may update its boundaries, its delivery boundaries, their postal delivery areas. They do it for their purposes, but we do not update it. So when you're using zip code data, you've got to make sure that your boundaries are current, okay? Because if you're looking at say 2022, we're using 2010 postal boundaries. But if you're looking at 2024 data, they may have some changes. So you have to find out if there's any changes or have been any changes in your area. And as with, neighborhood boundaries, zip codes don't fit neatly in the tracks. So, because they meander, and in rural areas, zip codes can, cover large swaths of geography. So, caution should be used when you're using zip code data, right? The most accurate for the description of a neighborhood would be the collection of the census tract. So, just for this one area, for this one address, I want to look at what is in the local area of this address that I can use. And in the narrative profile, okay, it's going to give you a complete profile of all the variables that are normally asked of in a data search. In terms of, let me close off so you can see that better. Households and families, foreign born, indigenous people, language, geographic mobility, you name it. These are the most sought out variables or topics, okay, that are asked about local areas. And if we come in, say, for education, pop that one open. This is what I mean, that it's a different way of looking at data other than a table with numbers. Education for that specific tract, 8447, okay, and it resides in Cook County. Here
Okay,
you have,
Ileana,
yeah.
how are you handling questions? Are you going to answer questions as you go along, or do you prefer to get the questions at the end?
We could do it as we go along so people don't forget.
Okay, we've got a question from Kaylin. Kaylin, did you want to?
Yes, I have a question. Um, as far as the census tract data that you said was closer to maybe neighborhoods, is that going by radius? Like, how do we know how far it is from that
That,
address?
yeah, that is a challenge. And that is going to come into resources that we have available for you.
Okay.
Um, I'll show you when we get into the other tool how you can maneuver that. But what you are going to need to do is get yourself a map of your neighborhood, right? And then you're going to use our resources to identify the tracks in that area. And then you're going to have to overlay them so you can see if the tracks fit neatly within that neighborhood, or if there are areas that you're going to have to do some exclusion or inclusion. Okay. Because like I
Okay.
said, it's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It can fit, but you're going to have to shave off some of the points on the sides, and
Yeah.
then it'll fit. But that's a decision that you, as a data user, will have to come up with, whether it works or it doesn't work, right? Because you may be pulling in data from other neighborhoods that will skew your number, or you may be excluding data if you decide not to go with that. That may, muddy up the estimates, right? So these are all challenges that you kind of need to weigh. All right.
Yeah. And then for the zip code one that you said is based off the US postal, they do that 10 years, and how are we able to find like whatever, like is there a website that says, oh, we've changed the zip codes, areas, look here, you know?
That's a good question. And I myself don't know if they publish those updates. That's a good question, Kaylin. I need to look that up. Let me write that down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I got that question in terms of boundary updates from the post office. Is there a site that will publish that data? Okay, so going back to where you can pull data using this granular, method, if you will, here you can see for that tract, you can get a visual, which has a little bit more impact than just a table with numbers, right? And then you've got a little bit of verbiage here that will give you a description. And if you want to go to the source, this is the table, the data profile 02, the selected social characteristics that will give you, that it's pulling from to give you this image, right? So you have under households and families, here's another visualization or another piece of data in a different format. So you have your, description, and now you have something that is driving those numbers home. Okay, you've got here female householder, no spouse, married couple households. So is this a disparity, a comparison? You've got other middle of the line data. You've got this at your fingertip by coming into ACS website and using the narrative profiles. Of course, you can go and you look at these other tables as well. And if you're not sure of what you're looking at, go to the table ID and it'll explain the product, because in the tool, we do have base tables, subject tables that give you percentages, okay? Not only numbers, but percentages. And the Census Bureau does recommend that when you're using these estimates, that you kind of use the means, the medians, the percentages, okay? Try not to use totals, because it's an estimate, right? And you've got numbers there, but sometimes the percentage, the mean, and the average are more impactful than just that individual number. However, it's there so that depending on what your project is, it's there for your use. Okay, we give you different modes of grabbing and using that data. Okay, so like I said, we have a 1-hour session that we can go in depth on ACS, so you can learn everything about it, the geography, the table ID, the products, the release date, so on and so forth. But for now, what I also want to show you is coming back to the main page on the upper left-hand side under the census icon. Just click on that and it's going to take you right back to the middle of, I should say, to our splash page. Let me move this over a little bit. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to show you is for those individuals who want or are looking for business data, just like our demographic surveys, the data is attached to a geography. You've got business data that's attached or described by NAICS codes, okay? And in order to get that business data, you are going to have to, let me close this out. You are going to have to identify the North America Industry Classification Code for that endeavor. Okay, so say for instance, you want to look at okay, nail salons. Okay, what specific am I talking about? A nail salon, okay, if you click on this code here, it's going to give you the description, okay, which would be different than if you see here, you're getting very specific descriptions. The 6-digit NAICS code is the most accurate, the most described. The 2-digit, so if you go into like 81 and ask for it, it is the sector, okay, the industry code, very broad. And as you go down and get more specific, it's going to give you that granular data that you're looking for, okay? And so you'll need to identify your NAICS sector before, or your NAICS code before you can get that business data or that economic data that you're looking for. So I wanted to point that out to you so you can see when we go to the tool why it is that we have codes in the bottom of it. Okay, so main page, these are your entry portals. You want to learn anything about what data we collect, come into the topics page and you can get anything your heart desire on what we collect in housing, race, redistricting, education. It takes you to that topical page, and in that topical page, you're going to get links to other sources, tools, and data. So again, be careful because you can go down a rabbit hole real easy. But if you ever wanted to get back to the top, just go to the upper left and click on the census icon, and it'll take you right there. The second tab is data and maps. Now, we have a lot of tools, and if you want to see all of them, you come to this link here that gives you the data tools and the applications. We have visualizations and interactive maps for you to use. A lot of the visualizations that are coming out these days are like mini data tool access, okay? Data access tools, I should say. For instance, if I go into that, you are going to be able to look at the tools based on your topic, the survey or program, and of course, the economic survey or program. So all of these, you can definitely pop in and look. One that I wanted to show you that does act like a tool. Let's see, come back here and let's go to housing. And since housing is a big topic, we are going to look at building permits, okay? How are we doing in building permits? And this will give you, I guess you can look at it as trend data, but with this, you can look at, and again, the level of geography is a limit here. The lowest you can go is at the place level, okay? But you can look at total units construction, the valuation, what kind of construction is going on, single family or multi-unit family buildings, right? You can look at that data. You can also go under the year, and right now it's giving you all the years that we've collected data, or if you just wanted to look at the last 5 years, you can uncheck all and then just check the years of interest, and it'll bring back a representation equivalent to what you're looking at here. For the period, you have the ability to look at annual, monthly, or year-to-date data, right? And so you can set your geography. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong side. Now it's going to load. But you can click on the state level. Okay, let's say county level. And it's working a little slow this morning. Don't think it's at its coffee yet. But anyway, on the geographic type, you select your state, your county level. Down in this area over here, you identify the state, and it'll pull back all the counties. You can come into the county and put in your individual county or check them off down in this area, right? You can do the same thing for place. Apologize, the tool is definitely sluggish this morning, but I just wanted to point out to you that we do have lots of visualizations that work as data access tools, okay?
Question for you, Ileana. Do you guys have widgets where you can take some of those visualizations and put them on your own website? You know, you do a fancy chart like you just did, and you put it on your website so you can kind of augment your story. Is that possible?
Some of them have linking capabilities. I don't know if all of them do.
Got
And I'm
it.
talking about the tools. I'm not certain that that is available with our visualizations. It is available. You can download the image and or the table of the data in those visualizations, but linking it to a website, I'm not sure visualizations do. Tools, yes, I think so. Yeah. So that's just, one example of the visualizations. And then we do have
Powerful.
interactive maps. And on one of them is your Census Business Builder, okay? And this is where you're going to get business data. And hopefully it's working fine. It's not going to be sluggish on me. But what I recommend is if you're interested in this tool, take the tour. It will do it more justice than what I'm going to do in this explanation or demonstration, because this is kind of like a quick tour of the tool. But essentially what you're going to be able to do with this tool is create reports on a specific industry for a particular or a group of geographies, right? Because you can create
Ileana,
these.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. There's a question from Teresa Robinson.
sure. Go ahead.
Hello. I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt what you were saying, and I did arrive late um to the meeting, so maybe you covered this. So I'm a educator and currently researching STEM achievement in Chicago, particular neighborhoods against unemployment rates and poverty levels. And what I'm wondering is if the US Census data has a tool to get the data on those rates in Chicago, and what are the national rates or averages?
Thank
I should
you.
say
Yeah.
averages.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. We do actually have uh s- let's see, reports that come out on post-secondary educational attainment. Okay, and that one just came out a couple of days ago. And under the tool, you do have access to unemployment, poverty, and educational attainment. Again, with you're being specific with neighborhoods, and this is probably something that we covered that you missed out on. Um, Census Bureau recommends using census tract for your geographic area as opposed to neighborhood data, or I should say boundaries, because the neighborhood boundaries are locally defined. Okay, we have nothing to do with saying this is Hegwish, this is Austin, this is West Lawn. Those are neighborhoods that um, looked at their boundaries and created that area to describe their population group, right? Or their community. We are specifically, the tracks are numbers driven because the geographies have a population and housing threshold. So that's why we recommend using census tract to create your geography, okay, of your area of interest. But I'll show you
Question.
how to look at unemployment and poverty and educational attainment when we go to our demographic data tool, okay, or our data access tool.
Right.
But
So
for those,
just to be clear,
yeah,
I'm not looking for the neighborhood data. I have that
okay,
through the Illinois State Board of Education because I know that it doesn't exist at the U.S. Census.
okay.
But what I am looking for is the city of Chicago poverty rate and the city
Oh,
of
yeah.
Chicago unemployment rate so that I can then compare it, do a comparative analysis by neighborhood.
Yep. I'll show you how two ways that you can get at that data. Okay.
Great, thank
Um,
you.
you're welcome. And good questions. Thank you for asking them.
Mhm.
So anyway, this business tool is essentially a map, okay, a mapping tool. But over the geography, you have layers or a layer of ACS data or American Community. That's where you get your demographic data so you can do your market analysis. You have economic census data over that, so you can look at your economic data for that geography. And then we have several other layers of data that give you a robust, okay, profile of your area. So essentially, going back to the NAICS, you can look for on the left-hand side, search your location and say, we want to look at Chicago. It's going to search. Okay, and here you can look at metropolitan district, or I'm just going to put up the city of Chicago, right? And so the next thing, and it's telling you in this line of breadcrumbs, what level of geography you are at right now. The next thing it's going to ask you is what industry do you want to look at? Okay, so you can come in and look at, okay, let's look at education. What kind of education are you trying to find economic data for? So you have support services, building and construction, so on and so forth. So this is where you will locate. I'm just going to stay at the top sector level. And then it's going to ask you the next one over. Okay, and this is a bivariate tool, meaning that it'll allow you to look at two different variables. Let me move this slide over. So under the establishments, we've got cities in town, and right now it's giving me quarterly data. But say I wanted annual data or consumer, oops. I just wanted to look at the consumer, the residents in that area. You're able to look at that. And it's giving you, if you hover, a little explanation of what it is that that particular variable is all about. And then if you want more information, you can go back to the website and punch in that particular key in that particular topic in terms of a subject and get additional data. But it will allow you to, let's say, okay, we're doing quarterly data. I want to look at annual data for that. And it's going to give you, sorry, this little thing is getting in the way. It's going to give you different options down here. Let's look at employers. Okay. And now it's changing the map feature and your dashboard here for that data. Oh, see, tool is acting up. The map failed to load. Let's see, let's go back to quarterly. Okay, and then I'm going to add a second variable in terms of looking at socioeconomic characteristics, median household income. And this is where the different layers of the program data are available. So here you're getting a map, mostly, of course, because the city of Chicago, one enterprise, but then you also have the surrounding areas that you can also explore. And as you zoom in, oh, again, the map loaded with error. I wouldn't use this if I were you. Always make sure that when you load up a tool, it loads up correctly. I apologize about this, guys. The tool, I don't know, it's doing something. But like I said, come into this tool and take the tour and explore the different variables that are available to you to get a business profile, and that you can come over on the lower left-hand side. And when you create the report, you are going to have access to the demographic profile. Okay, it's going to give you a visual or a map of your geography. And then you start getting different ways of looking at the data. Okay, and here's your socioeconomic characteristics. Say you just wanted the workforce. On the left-hand side, you have your selection of those topics. Click on that and it'll take you to that section of this report. Okay, and so you want to print this, you can do the map, you can export it. Okay, so you have a variety of ways of downloading this report and a visualization, okay, on the map of your geography. Okay, I realize I did go kind of quick, but like I said, it has that tour that will do it more justice than what I just showed you here. It'll probably make more sense. Let me close this out. So now to Teresa's point in terms of accessing data, okay? Right on the face of Census.gov, you have your entry portal into two ways that you can get data, okay? You can do quick facts that give you high-level access to data, or you can dive deeper by using data.census.gov. And the difference is in the geography. This tool on the left, quick facts, will give you data for places that have 5,000 or higher in population. Data.census.gov, or DCG as we call it, will give you data for the lowest level of geography, decennial data, which would be block level. Okay, then you can look at ACS at the tract level or the zip code data from ACS, and you can look at economic data at the place, metro area, county level. That's the tool that you're going to go to. But for right now, if you need real quick data on a particular location that is over 5,000, we can look and use quick facts. Tell you the truth, this is my favorite tool because it is the easiest and it gives me the information that I want right away. At the national level, okay, you're going to get a full profile. And this is the one that you're going to get that complements your other geography, be it county or be it place level, okay? So say we wanted to look at Chicago. Okay, here's City of Chicago. And it's comparing it to the national data right now. This tool will allow you to key in 6 different geographies if you needed to look at it. So for instance, we have the national, we have the place. I'm going to do Cook, okay, in terms of comparing it, having this, and in the order you enter it is the order that it's going to show. We don't have the capability of rearranging the columns here, but for this, you're seeing, okay, a full profile of your geography. So Teresa, you were looking for unemployment and poverty. So population come down, families living, computer education. You've got education here. Under the economy, transportation, here we got income and poverty. Persons in poverty for Cook County is 16.8%. as compared to the nation at 10.6 or the county at 13.6, 7, I should say, right? So this is one way that you can get at the data without having to do too many searches. Okay. Excuse me. All right. And it always defaults to population. If you wanted to bubble up something to the top, you can come up to the select a fact, drop this down and say you were wanting that poverty data to come up to the top. Let's go up here, transportation business. It's the income and poverty cohort, right? So let's do persons in poverty. So it brings it up to the top and it will also highlight it in the particular cohort. Now say you're like, well, I just want the income and poverty label. I don't need all that other data that can be a little distracting. You can come up to this little search engine, drop down, again, come in under income and poverty because that's the cohort that line item is in. And now you have your data, your median household income, your per capita, and persons in poverty. So at least you have some context to look at, right? I think Teresa has another question. Oh, okay, you're clapping. Good. Okay. It's good
No,
to
I was
hear.
just clapping in hearts.
Okay, good. So this is data that you can use, right?
Yes.
Now, the way I like to also use it is I always ask myself, okay, so if the city of Chicago is 16.8, how does that compare to other places? What I can do, and not just Cook County or the states, I come over to the chart icon, click on that, and I'm just going to say, okay, city of Chicago, it's comparing it to a lot of other places, okay, a lot of other cities, okay, in the state. So you can look at it in different ways. Here's Chicago, and we've got 16.8% of persons in poverty. But when you come up here, you can see that Riverdale Village is way higher than Chicago, right? And if you keep scrolling down, Chicago's that little light gray area or that box with the X. If you come down, look at all those places that you can get poverty comparisons for. And the last one, the one that has the lowest poverty, is Hawthorne Woods. Okay, it sits at 0.6%. So it's a good way of ranking and comparing, okay, your topic as opposed to just having that one static number, right? But say, okay, well, that's fine and dandy. Well, how do I just don't want it for everything. I want it just for the areas that I selected. Again, you can filter those out by coming over to the left, click on that orange box, and now you've got your ranking for your selected geographies, right? Now, there's another thing that you can do with this tool, and you can look at the map. Okay, I'm going to do City of Chicago. And you can use this map to add or delete geographies if you so wish. So we have the US, in the table. We're comparing it to the US. I'm going to take that one out. And I'm going to take out, because we're talking about cities, I'm going to take out the county. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my map. And while the gears are going means it's loading. So I'm going to do, okay, here we have City of Chicago. which other areas do I want? And of course, there's no comparison because Chicago is so huge. But you do have the ability, if you work in like the surrounding areas, those other suburbs, you can select Dalton. Okay, you can select Harvey. You come here to Blue Island and Crestwood. And let's go for Alsip. Okay, when you get that, means that you've reached your maximum. We've got 6 geographies, and the ones that you have selected have that little orange boundary, so you know where that area sits. And here is Chicago up here. But if you go back up and look at your table, all those geographies that you selected are there. All right, you've got your areas. Now you can go back to your chart and say, okay, rank those for me. And we're looking at persons in poverty. Here's your line item. This is what you're looking at. So now you're going to be able to look and compare. There's Harvey, there's Dalton, so on and so forth. And again, this is too busy. I just want the areas that I selected. Click on that. And now you have your ranking chart. Okay. And here's the little icon where you can screenshot the chart. Okay. And you go to the widget if you want to print or create a CSV, download it, and then save it to Excel. And you've got all the data that is in your table. Right? So this is one way of getting data. Next is, and this is real quick, and it gives you that high level, most, sought after topics. But we're going to go here to data.census.gov. Also know that you can access it through data and maps over on the left-hand side. Click on DCG. Okay, so 2 ways that you can use this tool. You can come in and pop in a topic in terms of poverty, and then come in and use the filters to set your geography. Or again, you can, if you don't know the geography or the census geography for that area, key in an address. And like it did in the ACS side, it will start identifying the geographies that you can find data for. But we're going to go under Explore Filters, because this is the area that you go in if you know your topic, which we do. We were looking at unemployment and poverty. And we know the geography, okay, which is the city of Chicago, right? So under geographies, we're going to go to place, and that place resides in Illinois. And it's going to give you a list of all the places in Illinois. We don't want to do that. I'm going to come in here. And here's the city of Chicago. That's my geography, and it's keeping track of it on the left-hand side. While it recalibrates, I'm going to maneuver down here, because the next thing we want to do is select our topic. Okay, and this is where I think you guys, when you start using this tool, you're going to spend time learning what is contained in all of these topics, because it is multi-layered. Okay, so under income and poverty, there's an arrow. You're going to have different selections. If you click on the box, it's going to give you just the tables that contain income and poverty. If you wanted different iterations, you've got income and earnings. Click on that. You've got additional selections that you can look at. Those that are receiving food stamps. You can look at income in the household, or those that are receiving cash assistance. Okay. And if you just go to poverty, it's going to give you 2 different selections. So I'm going to go to poverty. Right. So I have my geography, which is the city of Chicago, and I want to look at the poverty level for the city of Chicago. Now, another thing that you can do, depending on if you need this data right away, or if you're researching and want to do some time series analysis, down here under the years, you can select which data set it is that you want to look at. I like to leave it open because I always like to see what's available. And what we're going to do is, once you have your filter selected, come over to the lower right-hand side, click that search button, And right away, you are getting tables. And it's always going to give you a locator map so you can put it into context. And here are your data sets that have that poverty data. High level is right here. And it comes from the 2024 American Community Survey 1-year estimate. Now, let me explain something important about the American Community Survey, which people fall for this all the time. They come in and they key in a geography and they say, I want the latest, and I know ACS is 2024 just released. I want that data set. The 1-year estimates are produced, or I should say are published, for geographies that are 65,000 in population or higher. Okay, so this is where you have to think of your large counties, your large cities, so on and so forth. So New York, Miami, Milwaukee, they're over 65,000, they're going to get a 1-year. Those that fall under that population threshold, like Crestwood or Dalton, they're not going to get a 1-year. They're going to get a 5-year data set. Okay, and that is exactly that. It is 5 years worth of data that is collected, aggregated, and then published, right? So you want to look at City of Chicago as one of those places that will get both a 1-year and a 5-year because it meets that population threshold. So if you want to look at the 1-year, you can come in right away. I want to look at my subject table. All right, that'll give you percentages. So you can look at the table, you can look at a map, or you can do it as a chart. When you look at the table, let me open that for a better view. This is what you're going to be seeing. So right across the top, it's giving you the table ID and the description. Here it's giving you, on the left side, it's giving you the source. And here's giving you the current data set that you're looking at. If you wanted to do some comparisons or analyses, you have, just by clicking that down arrow, you have the ability to navigate between any of these data sets. Now, the challenge is when you're doing time series analyses is we recommend not comparing overlapping samples. And that only happens if you're going to be using the 5-year data set. Compare 1-year to 1-year, no problem. 5-year, 2024, the next one you would be able to compare is 24, 23, 22, 21, 20 would be this one. You got to subtract 5 years to go to the next 5-year estimate that you can compare, right? And we also recommend that when you are comparing, doing multiple data sets, just 2 data sets or multiple data sets, that you use statistical testing. And I'll show you where you can get that later. And that's in the ACS website, or page, I should say. But here you have that capability, and then you can download the data table. You can suppress the margin of error, okay, which is basically an indication of uncertainty, if you will. And now you have a better view. You can transpose if you like, but this is too many labels, so that's not a good option for this table. Or you can create a map or a chart, print your data set. Basically, if you use this option, it's only going to print up a couple of columns, nothing below that line. So think of it as a print screen option, okay? So you have this data here, and then the geography, the totals, below poverty, and percent below poverty. So you have the option of using the percentage, okay, or the number. And it'll give you other data in terms of contributing factors or lack of for the poverty. So you have educational attainment, employment, work experience, percentages below, okay, not so much in this table. And then, some additional mean income, so on and so forth. You have additional data that you can look at under the poverty label, okay? If you wanted to do a map, click on that, or this table, it's going to pop it up. It's not a good example because we've got the City of Chicago, only one geography. But if you wanted to, like we did in the other one, let's see, I don't have the geography. Let's go to filters and say, okay, in place, again, in Illinois, I'm going to add a couple of suburbs around there. Okay, so we got city of Chicago. Let's do, okay, this one, I'll just take all of them so we can look at them. They're kind of spread out, but in order to do a good mapping representation, I have to have a little bit more of geography. Sorry, the 5 places that oh, I know why, because it's a 1 year. See, those 5 places that I selected are below 65,000, so I don't want to use that. I want to use the 5 year. And this one, I want to use this one. Okay, so here we have that little cluster. Now my legend is showing the demarcations in terms of the levels of poverty in those neighborhoods, right? And it's going for that population for whom poverty is determined. Say I wanted to look at a different marker, I can come down here and select these line items. So if I wanted to, say I wanted to look at people 65 year and over that are in poverty, this will change it for you.
Okay. Ileana,
Yeah,
Micah's got a question.
yeah.
Yes,
Go ahead.
ma'am. So with all this data, and this is just an offshoot, really. Does this data do y'all have the capabilities to tie this into like SAMHSA or other systems where we're doing research on, like, so for example, we're doing a project right now on substance use disorder in single mothers without homes. And we're in Louisiana, so East Baton Rouge doesn't have a lot of data on that. Is there sources in here where we can tie these things, or just take the data and move it over with SAMHSA data and merge the two? Or is that something we would just have to do manually?
I think it's something you're going to have to do manually, and you have the ability to download it to what other what do you call software, create
Okay.
a CSV or download it as an API or a zip file and then move
Okay.
it over. Geography, you might have to use geographic, GIS software. Yeah, but merging it, you would have to do it on your own. We give you the data and
Mhm.
you in different formats that you can access it and import it or upload it to the software there that you're using. And it's
Okay.
kind of like the same thing that we're doing now. The geography is there. If you're in Louisiana, you
Right.
pop in.
That's why the question popped up.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
it just led me into a different direction when you were talking.
yeah. No, absolutely. Thanks for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So here you have, I'm looking at that level of data for the poverty question, and you have those, and it's again personal preference, but if you see the legend is giving you 5 different breakouts, right? For some, that may be too much. And what I like to see is the upper tier, the middle, and the lower tier. And I can change that by coming into the classes icon and then going over to the right in this area here under data classes. You see it under 5. I can move it down to those 3 levels that I like to see. And now it's giving me 1 area that's super high, 2 areas that are in the middle, and then 3 areas that are low. And of course, you can play around with the colors if you like that kind of option. Okay, so this is one way to look at data visually, okay, and highlight a particular item that you are looking for. And then anytime that you want to change that perspective, just come over back to the filters, okay, and then change everything here. We can definitely take out all those geographies. It's being really slow today. Yeah, let me clear out all the filters. Let's just start from new. Okay, so quick search. I want data for Chicago. Just pop it in there, and then from there, the geography is set, and you are going to then select whatever topic of interest you like to see. Now, that's where I said here in this area, it's going to be a little bit about exploring what's underneath those topics. Under health, you have insurance, health, fertility, disability. Under housing, you can look at the financial characteristics. Okay, come up here and occupancy characteristics. This is where you get into crowding and as one of those health indicators, occupants per room, your ratio, look at that. And physical characteristics of the unit. Is it, types of rooms, so on and so forth. So this is how granular you can get in terms of the topics, not geography, but the topics. This is where you are going to need to spend some time to look at what is available under these additional, selections, not Hispanic, and so on and so forth.
I am so curious. This is Valerie. Does how do they get all of these data points? I don't think the census form is quite this long and involved, but they have an awful lot of data.
Well, this comes from the American Community Survey. Okay, these topics. These are the surveys that have similar data. Okay, so if you just want to restrict it to the characteristics of the population, that is American Community Survey. If you go to decennial and just restrict your data search to decennial data, this is what you're going to be getting. Okay, it kind of limits the available topics. Okay, so you may not get everything. In other words, you're not going to get the educational attainment of the Black or African American population group if you're looking under decennial data. Because if we go back and think about the questions that were asked in the decennial, we don't ask you about education. We ask you, okay, you live in this house, is it single attached or single detached? Is it rented or with a mortgage or free and clear? That's all we ask on housing. And the demographic questions is who lives here? What are your relationships? The age, the birth year, the race, the Hispanic origin. That's the that's the demographic data. The characteristics come from the American Community Survey. Okay. And this is giving you the option. Do you want the 1 year, which are for those large geographies, your large townships, your large boroughs, counties, places? 5 year is everybody else.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And I don't know if I'm out of turn asking this at this point, or let's say I'm asking for a friend. If you're working with children with disabilities, are there data that we can find and plot?
Here's your disability under health. There's your
Mhm.
disability variable. And then you could also cross tab it with age and sex. Okay. And once this loads up here, see right there, it's already beginning to
ma'am.
give you back data. Okay. And then you can change it again under population and people and then do age and sex. And now it's going to push out anything that's not hitting those markers, right? Which is your disability and age and sex. And so now you can look at grandparents, that take care of their disabled children or grandchildren, or look at here, the base table, okay, under the American Community Survey. Oh, I have it under geography. Let me move this over.
Does it go into multiple disabilities or just disability in general?
Oh, no, it gives you, you can look at by type, okay? And it will,
Mm, okay.
not this particular table. This is just
Right, right,
giving you age and sex.
right.
But the different disability topics that are available that you can look at here are visual, auditory, mobility, I
Mental
forget
health?
the, yeah. It's just those, I mean, when you're talking autism, that we don't cover at the excuse
Would
me,
it
at the moment.
would it bulk all of mental health into one?
No, because there are so many different types,
Right.
right? So, those are very specific, and those you would have to go to those organizations that deal with that particular.
Gotcha. Okay.
The disability that we cover are those main ones, the topical ones. And let's see, they're cognitive. You might find it under
Mhm.
cognitive, okay?
I was mainly
Um,
looking for right now, the two big projects we have are on substance use disorder.
yeah, no, that we don't.
Yeah,
Here we
we've been
have,
going to SAMHSA for most of that.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? And I know that we covered a lot, and this is kind of something that with practice, you're going to build up your skill set and your confidence in terms of what you can do with these tools. But like I said, right now is just start off simple and basic, look at your address and explore that area, and then come in here and look at these different topics that we have. Okay. And then from there, you can go ahead and explore. Okay. What is it that we have available that you can, let's see, I'm going to take out the age and sex and bring in a different table under disability. As it loads. Okay. And then here you have for it's just those by age broken down. This one for the city of Chicago, I'm going to go with the current one. And here you have it by race, and then put this percent with a disability and under, and then the disability type. Here you have hearing difficulty, visual, cognitive difficulty, and ambulatory. And for those terms, if you're not certain what those terms mean, when you go back to the surveys and program under ACS, you can come into the guidance. I believe it's in the guidance. Because we have a dictionary. I guess not this one. No. Oh, well, back up, back up. Here is under guidance. Here is your statistical testing tool. And all I want to say about this statistical testing tool is very simple to use. Let's see if it'll load up for me this time. Yesterday, it was not loading for me. But basically what this tool is an Excel spreadsheet that we formatted it to contain formulas. All you would need to do is, it's doing that again. Sorry. Let me see if I can find it from yesterday. No. Basically what it will walk you through is once you find the data tables that you want to compare, the data sets, I should say, you plug in the numbers into the spreadsheet and it will calculate for you whether those estimates are statistically significant or not. Because to the eye, you may see a big fluctuation in numbers and you think, hey, something happened here. So yeah, it's worth addressing. But when you run it through the tool, it comes back as not statistically significant. So you're better safe than sorry using this tool. Another area that I wanted to point out now is handbooks. We do have guidebooks, if you will. If you're in a particular agency or endeavor, if you work with rural areas, you can read up on ACS and rural areas. If you're doing in the business community, state and local government uses, so on and so forth, researchers, we have different guidebooks depending on the audience or the group that is looking for data, okay, and want to use the ACS. So I would definitely go with that. And if you wanted to learn, my recommendation is always has been, if you want to know what data is available, okay, look at the questionnaire. Okay, it will give you, if you walk through the questionnaire, you are going to understand the data that's available. Okay, and geography is a, little different depending on you've got to look at the thresholds and so on, but you can look at the guidebook on this and definitely reach out if you have any questions. Another thing that I wanted to point out, and this may be getting a little too far ahead of myself, but if you're of the mindset and you have your skill sets there with you, that you want to come up with your own margin of error or your own numbers, we do have in the tool what is called our microdata access tool. And this one, let's see, is it on here? Did they move it? Oh, no, back up. Let me back up. They did move it here. Under this microdata tab, we do have this tool that it does restrict your geography, okay? It's not available at the place level. You can probably get it at the county level, but it gives you access to all the answers in the questionnaire, the raw data. If you don't like what you're seeing in our pre-tab tables, you can come here and use this tool. And we have, I think, a couple of webinars archived in our webpage that can walk you through. If you need help, let me know. We can walk you through it. Okay. All right,
Okay.
Valerie, any other questions?
Yeah, one, I would like to share your contact information when I send the email out, and people can call you if they have questions. And Micah mentioned that he's not in the state of Illinois. Can he reach out to you as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're here to help out whoever needs help.
Okay. And then I want to follow up on a comment you made about neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Sometimes we define neighborhoods as just this little area. It could really just be an informal thing, like you were saying, and that would cause us to have to split census tracts and whatnot. But if you're working with, say, the city of Chicago, they have community areas that I believe trace back to clusters of census tracts. And I'm wondering if you can do a demonstration of, say, a local community in Chicago. I know Lawndale is community area 29, but you don't have to use that one. And if you can show something like veteran status to
Okay.
show where people live in that community as an
Well, we
example.
we can't show where people live, okay?
Right.
Because that
Okay.
would be, yeah, a violation of our Title 13.
Thank
What
you.
we can show is the aggregate data for a particular geography. And this is the resources that I wanted to leave you with. Because it is challenging to work with neighborhood data and track level. It's like, how do I put that together? So this
Mhm.
is from the Chicago Metropolitan Air Agency on Planning. Okay, they have community profiles that you can tap into,
Mhm.
and they do compile this data based on neighborhoods, I should say on tracks. Okay, so if you were looking for neighborhood profiles, this is a good resource, the CMAP, and then
Mhm.
go into their neighborhood profiles. And here you can get, and it does give you information. The data does come from ACS, but they also use some CMAP data as well. But coming down, you're going to get those profiles, just like we did in Quick Facts. Okay,
Mhm.
you're getting it for the community or that
Okay.
neighborhood. right?
And when you're, I'm sorry, and when you're done with this, Micah has his hand raised.
Okay, so this is, where else you can come in and get, I just pulled up West Lawn, but here you can get, data for those 77 communities or neighborhoods in Chicago. Another resource, oops, yeah, that I wanted to point to is Chicago Association of Realtors. They have good census tract maps. So, and they have them identified by neighborhoods. Okay. So if you pull up Chicago West, whoops, no, not this one, West Lawn, you're going to get, because they base their stuff on census tract, you're going to get a good representation of the geography. So this is where I say it can be a little challenging identifying the tracts for certain neighborhoods. And so if you have this and then you overlay the tracts on this, you'll be able to see, is this a different tract or is it just here? So you've got your north boundary, your west boundary. This one kind of meanders here this way. And then this is where, when you've got these little changes or they don't follow in a good, square pattern, this is where it would be a little challenging. Because say, for instance, the tract was up on 71st, but it came down to Ford City. Then you're going to have to decide, well, what's in here? Do I want to bring it in or do I want to exclude it? And that's where you would have to go then and compile block group level data. Okay, and that's as low as you can go on ACS. So you can't surgically cut out a block or two because you won't have ACS data for that, but you would have to look at the block group data. Okay, now on using, oh, here comes this thing again. Let me go in here under your geography. You do have the ability to look at tract maps. Okay, so you've got census tract. Let's do Illinois, all tracts within Illinois. It is a huge file. And if you're doing all tracts within any state, those are huge files. So just be cognizant of the fact that it's going to take time to load, and you might get a page that it says the table is too large, but then there's a little link on the bottom that you can click on and it will display it. So let's say I wanted to do Cook County again. All tracts in Cook County. You've got that option, or you can cherry pick your tracks. Okay, so let me look at, what track was I looking at? 844. Let's see. All right. I think 8443. No.
I'm sorry, I didn't I didn't
All
pay
right,
attention.
let's just look at these two tracks here. It was one of these two that it was for that address that I looked up. So I just selected those two tracks, and then I'm going to say, okay, let me see it on a map and to see if this is the area that I want to be at. Okay, so now here's a track map representation. Now, mind you, Chicago is huge. And if you're going to pull up a census tract map, all of this is, you see how it starts to get congested? Just, we're going to have to be mindful of that. So I just selected those two tracks and look at where it put me. Okay. Two different areas. Because if you're working in neighborhoods, this is probably one neighborhood and this is probably another neighborhood. Okay. But this is how you can use your tract information and then visually look at it to see if that's where exactly you want to be. Now, if you know the boundaries of your neighborhood, let me open this up a little bit. You know the boundaries of a neighborhood, a little better, then you can say, well, go in further, and now you're going to start looking at features. Okay, and then you can say, well, here's the street. Okay, here's one boundary. This is another boundary. And then you can look and see if that neighborhood boundary adheres to your tract.
And
Okay.
do
And then
those, I'm sorry, do those track numbers, at least in the city of Chicago, do they track back to the community area? So like for Lawndale, community area 29, is there a cluster of tracks that start with 29 or something that I can just
No,
kind of put
no,
together?
no. At least I don't think so because Chicago's got a variety of tracks. And if you go back to, let's see, your filter. Okay, let me check those two out because we don't need those anymore.
Yeah, and I know Micah had a question too.
Go ahead, as I searched it, go ahead and ask it.
You actually answered it when you were going through the tracks and showing,
Okay.
yeah, so it's fine.
Okay.
We do something similar here, and I'm sure the filter system will be the same.
Awesome. And Micah, you're a veteran, right?
Yes, ma'am. I did 26 years in the Army.
Thank you for your service. We got at least one other veteran here, Apostle Dale Evans. Thank you for your service as well. Those are the two that I know. If there are others on the call, thank you for your service. We really,
That's actually what my personal research is on. I'm actually going to use some of the census data. That's one of the reasons why I got into this, because when I start my dissertation, I'm looking into combat arms specifically. I'm not looking at support role, but just mainly combat arms. So where she's talking about the veteran data, that's actually something I'm really curious about. So
awesome.
And we do, yeah, Mike, thank you for your service and absolutely wonderful that you're here and there's something that we can help you in. It really excites me that we have data that you can look at, in terms of veteran data, you can look at the disability for the veteran community. You can look at the campaign that they participated in. There's just, quite a bit of data here from the census that you can delve into.
the tricky part is I'm not so much worried about veterans. My belief is veterans have tons of resources. And I'm in the VA system pretty deep, and I'm also an MSW. So I'm looking more at people that are currently serving in uniform. They actually have more restrictions than veterans do.
Oh, wow.
They have a harder time. So
Yeah.
my focus is on the people in uniform.
Yep, whether they're in service or not, civilian or not, we've got data that you can look at, definitely so.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, great. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you for that. Valerie, to your question, here are the track, and I don't see any 29 in there. So I think that is something for the city of Chicago. Okay,
Okay,
those are their
yeah.
community numbers, but I
Okay,
don't see them being reflected here.
got it. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't think so. Anyway, yeah, share the my contact information with your group, and if anybody needs help or further clarifications, definitely give me a holler. Okay? And thank you so much for your time and attention. This has been awesome, sharing this with you guys.
Absolutely.
Now,
Thank you.
would you be open to doing a deeper dive where it's hands-on and some exercises that we can do? If
Yeah,
that
yeah,
might have to be in person or maybe do breakouts, but it would definitely need to be, longer than an hour and a half.
yes, yes, it would.
Okay.
Yes, it would. Yeah, we can
If you,
talk about it. We can
okay.
definitely explore that.
And
Put
I
me on
can
that
ask,
list.
oh, okay, awesome. Okay, so that settles it. If we do it, it'll be online with breakout rooms, but we definitely, I think, could benefit from hands-on. And for me, I'm a tactile learner. I have to touch the keyboard for it to register. And there may be others. But
Well,
this,
until that happens, what I would recommend
Mhm.
is at census.gov, come over to Census Academy.
Oh,
Okay.
awesome.
And
Mm-hmm.
this is basically a virtual hub of continuous education with the Census Bureau.
Oh,
And you
excellent.
can view our webinars, the upcoming ones up here, upcoming or our archived or recorded webinars. And these, you have access to the recording, you have access to the presentation, and also a transcript if you need that. But then also we have these little things called data gems.
Mm-hmm.
And they're about 3 to 5 minute YouTube videos that will walk you through the process. So talking about NAICS codes, here we have one on how you can, use that for your business data. This one was just released, these two a couple of days ago, visualizing your data using the maps, how to select your variable and then create a map for that variable that you want to highlight, and so on and so forth. So you can definitely immerse yourself depending on the topic,
Mm-hmm.
that you are interested in, but these are up there 24/7, and they're great resources for self-learning, if you will.
Awesome. I tell you, this website used to be so much simpler, but
Yeah.
I thank you so much for, you make this thing that I think requires a PhD to navigate. You make it easier, but I think we could benefit from some hands-on exercises. Um, and yeah, we could figure out how best to do that, and then I can understand too from the group what they're most interested in learning, and we can, tailor it for our group.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I'm glad that you guys found this useful. I know I went through it kind of quickly, but that is basically to show you that we have a lot here,
Yeah,
and it's a lot of information that you guys can use in your endeavor. I mean, there's something here for everyone. It's just finding that right niche, right? And
yeah.
so I hit upon the most popular, the most useful, and the easiest for me, the tools, that you can start accessing data right away.
Okay, great. So thank you so much. I never could have done what you did in the short time that you had. So you deserve a medal, Ileana.
Well, the only ask I have, Valerie, is yeah, I'm going to send you a link for some feedback, and I would like if you could share it with the audience so they can provide. It's a very quick 6-question kind of questionnaire, and that'll give us ideas if what we're doing is we're on the right track, or if there are other things that we need to do to improve the delivery, of what the content that we have online. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. All right, guys, have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You too. And I'd like to thank everybody again for showing up. And we will make sure that you get a copy of this video and the transcript. And then, we'll probably send out in addition to what Ileana is asking for in terms of feedback, we'll probably also send a Google form to get a sense for where you think we should go next with this, because I have a vested interest in making sure that we all become a little bit more literate with this, given the work that we all do. All right. So without further ado, I'll say class dismissed. And,
Okay,
and
bye,
thank
guys.
you.